solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, ma'am. If you please tell the members of the jury your name.
Diana Smith
And how are you employed?
with the Sanford Police Department.
And how long have you been with the Sanford Police Department?
A little over 6 years.
And your position with the police department is what?
I'm a crime scene technician.
And can you describe for the jury what are your duties and responsibilities as a crime scene technician?
I respond to crime scenes to document, photograph, collect, and preserve evidence.
And how long have you been a crime scene detective or technician with the Sanford Police Department?
Almost 6 years.
All right. And what was your position before becoming a crime scene technician?
I was an evidence technician.
All right. And tell them what an evidence technician does.
They transport, intake, and inventory evidence.
Can you give the jury a brief summary of your training and education that you've completed to prepare you for your duties as a crime scene technician?
On-the-job training. I also have certifications in crime scene processing, crime scene response, reconstruction of shooting incidences, DNA analysis, death investigation, and blood pattern analysis.
All right. Do you also attend continuing education courses to stay current in the field of crime scene investigations?
Yes, I do.
Can you estimate for the jury, please, the approximate number of scenes that you've processed in your 5+ years as a crime scene technician?
It's been about a few hundred.
Incidentally, are you related to a Sanford Police Department patrol officer named Tim Smith?
Yes, I am.
How so?
He's my husband.
Do you and Officer Smith, Officer Tim Smith, occasionally have the opportunity to respond to the same calls?
Yes, we do.
And how does that happen?
My on-call rotation sometimes lands on his rotation.
All right. Let me turn your attention then, please, to the evening of Sunday, February 26, 2012. Were you working on that evening?
Yes, I was.
And on that evening, did you respond to the scene of a shooting at the Retreat at Twin Lakes complex?
Yes, I did.
Is that located here in Sanford, Seminole County, Florida?
Yes, it is.
And approximately what time did you arrive on the scene?
About 7:55 p.m.
Had the scene been taped off and secured by patrol officers when you arrived?
Yes, it was.
And what were the weather conditions like when you arrived?
We were experiencing intermediate showers.
Had it been raining prior to your arrival at the scene?
Yes, it had.
When you arrived at the scene, did you speak with Sanford Police Department patrol officers that had arrived before you?
Yes, I did.
And what is the purpose of that?
To brief me on the scene.
Was the victim's body still located at the scene when you arrived?
Yes, it was.
And did you later learn that person's name to be Trayvon Martin?
Yes, I did.
Did Trayvon Martin's body have a yellow medical blanket on top of it when you arrived?
Yes, it did.
Did you conduct a walkthrough of the scene?
Yes, I did.
And explain for the members of the jury, what is a walkthrough? What do you mean by that?
The officers that are briefing me on the scene would usually walk me through and point out any type of evidence or anything that they've noticed that I need to be aware of before I start working the scene.
Yeah, I accept. walkthrough in this case?
Yes, I did.
All right. After completing the walkthrough, what's the first thing you did as far as processing the scene?
Started my photographs.
And did you touch or move anything before you started your photography?
No, I did not.
And why do you start with photography?
So that I can present in my photographs the way the scene was presented to me.
Was it still raining when you were taking photographs?
Yes, it was.
And in fact, did some of your photographs capture the rain at the scene?
Yes, they do.
Do you photograph the scene in stages?
Yes, I do.
And explain to the jury what you mean by that.
My first photographs are overalls using no markers, and then I go back in and get closer with markers.
And tell them what you mean by markers.
Object markers, usually with a number or a letter.
And what are the purpose of placing markers by items of evidence?
In relevance to photographing the location to one another.
All right. Did you later collect the items that you identified with the markers?
Yes, I did.
All right. Did you measure the scene and the items within the scene prior to the collection of those items?
Yes, I did.
Did you create a diagram of the scene to document the location of the physical evidence relative to other pieces of evidence into the body of Trayvon Martin?
Yes, I did.
And were your measurements and scene diagram later provided to a member of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in order to construct a computerized rendition of the crime scene?
Yes, it was.
And have you seen the computerized renditions of the crime scene in this case?
Yes, I did.
And do those renditions fairly and accurately depict the crime scene and the layout and location of the physical evidence at the scene?
Yes, it does.
All right, Your Honor, if I may approach the witness.
Yes, you may.
Let me show you first Officer 139. Just outside the presence of the jury, you recognize that?
Yes, could you
Yeah,
please?
Judge, I believe these were previously stipulated. 139, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
All right, and does that fairly and accurately depict the layout of the scene and the evidence within the scene when you arrived?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And states 140, is that just sort of a shot of the same area but from further out?
Yes, it is.
And does it include more of the buildings in the complex than the State's Exhibit 139?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, may she step down
Yes, you may.
so I can publish this?
If you could go over by that podium, and you should be able to see.
You know, does the court have a pointer somewhere, some sort of extended pointer that we can use?
No, I do not.
Madam Clerk, do you have? No? Okay. You can come on over. Officer Smith, let me put you on this side. Keep your voice loud enough so the court reporter can hear you. And if you would, states 139, just take the members of the jury through the item markers and the legend and just kind of refer back and forth, starting with item number 1.
Item number 1 is right here.
And let me get you to try to stand back just a little bit just so this last juror can see. Thank you so much.
Item number 1 is up here.
All right, and that's depicted as what in your legend?
The keys and flashlight.
All right, and items 2 and 3?
Items 2, items 3,
All right.
plastic bags,
All right, and 4?
Item 4, first aid kit.
To your knowledge, do you know anything about how that first aid kit got there,
I do not.
or where it came from? All right, item number 5.
Item number 5,
Is what?
I believe that is a flashlight.
All right, and is that indicated on the legend?
Yes, it is.
All right, and item 6, or marker 6, I should say, depicts what?
A victim's body.
All right, and do you have that in, is that identified in somewhat a body, a depiction of a body?
Yes, it is.
All right, and item 7,
Item 7, cell phone.
and 8.
Item 8, cartridge case.
Let me ask you to stay right there if you would. Yara, could you dim the lights? And Yara, would you inquire of the jurors if they can still see the screen with that in the way? They can't, all right?
Can everybody see the screen? Yes.
All right,
Okay.
Mr. Smith, let me get you to come stand over where I am. Again, please keep your voice up. We don't have a microphone, and the court reporter still needs to hear you. State's Exhibit 3. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
All right, and can you show the members of the jury, first of all, is that an accurate depiction of the scene and the lighting conditions, other than the flash, of course, when you took the photographs?
Yes, it is.
All right. Can you show the members of the jury on States 139 the diagram where that photograph is taken from?
I do believe it's taken from this angle here, going this way, so that would be west to east.
All right. States Exhibit 4, what's depicted in that photograph?
This is showing south. We are going to be standing on the other side of this T, right about here, looking down the T on the sidewalk.
All right. And I'm going to circle in red. Is that the blanket that covered Trayvon Martin's body for perspective?
Yes, it is.
All right. States Exhibit 5, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And show the members of the jury on the diagram then where that photograph, what that depicts.
If I'm not mistaken, that is standing right here at the T, looking down towards object marker number 4.
All right, and is the kind of the dog walk container or receptacle depicted in that photograph?
Yes, it is.
And show the members of the jury where that would be on the diagram.
I do believe it's this marking right here.
States Exhibit 6, from what angle or view is that?
This is looking at the corner behind 2861 and looking down the T.
And again, do we see Trayvon Martin's body in the blanket depicted in the photograph actually behind a raindrop?
Yes, yes, you do.
All right, State 7, what angle or view is that?
This is now standing on the T looking south, going this way.
And States 8?
Standing right behind object marker number 1, also looking south.
All right, and I'm going to circle that on the screen. When you refer to the markers, that's what you're referring to?
That's correct.
All right. And then States 9, is that a close-up then of exhibit number 1?
Yes, it is.
And I believe that's depicted on the diagram and from your testimony as the keychain with the flashlight on.
That is correct.
States 10, do we see item marker number 1 and then also item marker number 2 in that?
Yes, you do.
And States 11, tell the jury what's depicted in that photograph.
This This photo is taken from right over here, looking at object markers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
All right. This is obviously 2. Is this 3 right here?
Yes, it is.
All right. And in the background, is that 4 up there?
Yes, it is.
All right. And then 5 and 7 are more visible, and 6 actually depicts the body, correct?
That is correct.
All right. States 12, what's depicted there?
Plastic bag, object marker number 2.
And states 13,
Plastic bag, object marker number 3.
and states 14.
First aid kit, object marker number 4.
States 15.
Showing relationship, object marker number 5 and 7 to object marker number 6.
All right. And 6 is the body. Remind the jurors what are objects 5 and 7.
Object marker 5 is a flashlight, and 7 is a cell phone.
State 16, is that a close-up of the flashlight by marker 5?
Yes, it is.
And state 17, does that simply depict the marker 6 in Trayvon Martin's body?
Yes, it does.
States 18 is what?
Object marker number 7, cell phone.
And states 19.
An Arizona T-can.
States 20, is that how Trayvon Martin's body appeared when the yellow medical blanket was removed?
Yes, that is correct.
And states 21, is that a close-up of Trayvon Martin's face?
Yes, it is.
And states 22.
Showing a photo pin.
Was that pin collected as part of your work in this case?
Yes, that is correct.
States 23,
Documenting a watch.
as well as Mr. Martin's left hand, wrist,
That is correct.
and states 24,
Documenting our victim's right hand.
and states 25. Is that a depiction of Trayvon Martin's body just from the other side now?
That is correct.
And states 26, does that more clearly capture the photo pin on Trayvon Martin's sweatshirt?
Yes, it does.
States 27, what's depicted there?
That is a possible projectile hole.
And in that photograph, has the gray outer sweatshirt been lifted up to expose a second sweatshirt?
Yes, it has.
And states 28, what's that?
That is a possible gunshot wound.
States 29, in that photograph, has the body of Trayvon Martin been already removed?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, and I'm going to circle a little yellow arrow, if you will, on the screen. Is there a purpose for that arrow?
Yes, there is.
And is that something that you or another member of the police department placed in the graphs?
Yes, that is correct.
And what's the purpose of the arrow?
To show relationship between object marker 6 to the cartridge case.
All right, and states 30, does that depict the cartridge case with the arrow?
Yes, it does.
All right, and if I circle it, is it right at the end of the pointed end of the arrow?
That is correct.
And does it appear that the cartridge case is actually standing on end as it fell in the grass?
Yes, it does.
States 8, was that the marker that you used to depict the shell casing?
Yes, it is.
All right, and states 32, I'm sorry, Judge, I think I said states 8, I meant states 31, the prior photograph. States 32 depicts what?
A measurement of the cartridge case.
All right, states 33 show the members of the jury on the diagram, if you would, where that photograph was taken from.
This was taken from the front of this residence here, 1221 and 1211.
All right, and states 34.
Showing the front of the residence to 2861 and 2851.
And states 35.
Showing 2861 out front again.
All right, let me back up for just a moment. States 21. Do you see in that photograph depicted earphones or headphones in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
All right, and are those depicted essentially to the right and above Trayvon Martin's head?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Let me catch up. States 36. Did you return the next day and take photographs in the daylight hours?
Yes, I did.
And that would have been on the 27th.
That is correct.
Okay. Is the ground and the sidewalk still wet in that photograph?
Yes, they are.
All right, and show the members of the jury again on states 139, the diagram, where that photograph depicts the angle or view.
It's going to be right over here. That would be west, on the west side.
All right. Shooting from west to east.
Yes, that is correct.
All right. In states 37.
It's going to be right here, following the T.
And again, the dog receptacle, dog package receptacle is in there.
Right here.
States 38.
This is standing right above the sidewalk, looking down the T, going south.
And states 39.
This would be over in this area where object marker number 3 and 4 are roughly.
And states 40.
And that would be on the east side looking west.
States 41.
Also on the east side looking west.
States 42.
That would be the back patio of 2861 here.
And states 43. What area is depicted in that photograph?
You're looking right behind object marker number 4, which is here, looking north.
And states 44.
This would be right over by object marker number 5 and 6. And that would be looking east, going this direction.
Your Honor, would you raise the lights, please? Thank you. And just quickly, let me ask you, states 140, describe for them now how 140 relates to 139.
This is just a zoom out photo diagram of the previous exhibit. It just shows relationship to more of the buildings.
All right. Officer, or the deputy, or you can hand with this. We'll move that. All right. Your Honor, may she stand down while we publish some exhibits?
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
All right. All right, Officer Smith. States 148. Tell the members of the jury what it is and how you recognize it.
This would be the Arizona toucan shown in the photographs.
And how do you recognize it as the same?
It appears to be the same, and also the original packaging is attached to it.
All right, could you just kind of hold that up for them a little bit closer and maybe turn it around so that they can, there you go. All right, and when you arrived, was that on top of the yellow medical blanket?
Yes, it was.
All right. In states 145, if you would, tell them how you recognize it and what it is.
This is the flashlight which was object marker number 5 in the photographs.
And does that also bear the case markings from this particular case?
Yes, it does.
States 146. What is that?
This is the cell phone. That was object marker number 7 in the photographs. Also has the original packaging.
And states 142 and 143. If you can hold those up together. What are those items?
Object marker number 2 and number 3, 2 plastic bags.
And do those also bear the original packaging that you would have put them in before you took them in the property room?
Yes, they do.
States 144. What is that?
The first aid kit, which is object marker number 4 in the photographs. Also,
And a pair of tweezers. All right. And was that also in the original packaging?
yes, it is.
States 150. You recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
$40.15,
And where did that come from?
collected from the victim's pocket.
All right. Let me show you next, states 149, that packaging. You recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And is that a composite exhibit? That is, it contains multiple items.
That is correct.
And are the items listed on the packaging itself?
Yes, they are.
And what items came from the packaging?
A red lighter, a photo button, bag of Skittles, and headphones.
All right. And is this the lighter that was originally in that package?
Yes, it is.
All right. And the photo button, is that the same?
Yes, it is.
All right. Package of Skittles.
Yes, it is.
And the headphones.
Yes, they are.
All right. States 141. Can you tell the members of the jury what that is?
This would be object marker number 1, the keys, the small flashlight.
You recall whether or not that flashlight was on when you arrived or when you collected it?
Yes, it was on.
And finally, states 147. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
Object marker number 8, the cartridge case.
How do you recognize it to be the same from the scene?
Same caliber, same brand, and also it's attached to the original packaging.
All right. Officer Smith, you may resume your seat. Thank you very much. Officer Smith, did you process any of the items by any means other than photography?
Yes, I did.
All right. Did you do any of that while you were still at the scene?
No, I did not.
And why not?
The weather conditions would not allow me to.
Was Trayvon Martin's body removed from the scene?
Yes, it was.
And it was after that that you found the shell casing?
That is correct.
And how was the shell casing discovered?
By using a metal detector.
Did you search the scene in any way for blood evidence?
Yes, I did.
In what areas did you search?
I searched along the sidewalk, in between the buildings,
And how did you conduct that search?
using a flashlight.
You know, may I press the witness? Let me show you again, Officer Smith, States 139. Can you stand up for me? And just show the members of the jury generally what areas you searched for any blood evidence.
I walked along the T on the sidewalk, down the T, in the grass, and between all these buildings.
And you were using a flashlight.
That is correct.
All right. Did you, other than the area immediately surrounding the body, did you locate any blood at the scene?
No, I did not.
Did you locate any blood in the grass where the body was?
No, I did not.
And approximately how long were you at the scene that evening?
Approximately 2 hours and 45 minutes.
After leaving the scene, did you respond to the Sanford Police Department?
Yes, I did.
And about what time would you have arrived at the police department?
Approximately 11:15 p.m.
And again, this is still on February 26th.
That is correct.
All right. While at the station, did you take photographs of a person later identified to you as George Zimmerman?
Yes, I did.
You see that person in court this afternoon?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify where he's sitting or what he's wearing?
Over to my right, wearing a light-colored jacket and a plaid tie.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect.
If I have just a moment, have somebody swap these batteries out. Was the defendant still at the scene at Retreat at Twin Lakes when you arrived?
No, he was not.
All right, so the first time you would have had contact with him would then have been at the police station?
That is correct.
When you photographed the defendant, did you have him do anything, clean himself up or position himself in any way, or did you just take photographs as he was?
As he was.
All right. States 45, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Judge. Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the defendant when you came into contact with him at the police station?
Yes, it is.
All right. And States 46, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Is that a close-up of the defendant that you took at the police station?
Yes, it is.
States 47, is that a further close-up of the face of the defendant that you took that evening?
Yes, it is.
And States 48, yet a closer shot of the defendant's face?
That is correct.
All right. States 49, what's depicted in that photograph?
The shoes?
And did you essentially, in photographing the defendant, take shots literally from head to toe?
Yes, I did.
Front and back?
That is correct.
All right. States 50 then, what does that depict?
Showing the jeans and the shoes.
And States 51?
The jacket, undershirt, and belt.
States 52?
The backside of the jacket, jeans and shoes.
All right. And States 53?
The lower portion of the jeans and the shoes.
States 54?
The lower portion of the jacket and the jeans.
And States 55?
The backside of the jacket.
States 56?
And the backside of Zimmerman's head.
States 57?
Just a close-up.
Of the back of his head?
That is correct.
And States 58?
Another close-up.
And States 59?
The backside of Zimmerman's hands.
States 60?
Zimmerman's right hand.
61?
left hand.
62,
Palm of the right hand,
63,
palm of the left.
and state 64.
Another front shot of his face.
And did you take several photographs of the defendant's head to preserve through photography any injuries that he may have had at the time?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, state 65. What does that depict?
Showing possible blood.
And state 66? Is that a shot of the right side of his head?
Yes, it is.
And state 67, the left side of his face?
Yes, it is.
And state 68, is that the left side of Mr. Zimmerman's head?
Yes, it is.
All right, state 69, what's depicted there?
This is the top of his head.
And state 70,
The right side.
from the top?
That is correct.
All right, and state 71.
The right side.
And state 72,
The left side.
state 73,
The left side.
and state 74.
The back.
State 75.
The right side.
Yeah, there are no more photographs. Thank you. While you were at the police station, did you also collect the clothes that the defendant had on?
Yes, I did.
And did you get those clothes from the defendant or someone else?
I do believe directly from the defendant.
And how did you package the defendant's clothes?
I gave the defendant paper bags to put his clothing items in.
And did he do that?
Yes, he did.
All right. And what did you do with the defendant's clothes after you collected them?
They were packaged and put into evidence.
All right. Your Honor, may I have the witness step down,
Yes, you may.
if you would? If you approach here. And again, I'm going to need you to, yeah, you can stop right there. We'll bring it out to you. States 151, does that appear to be the jacket that you removed from the defendant or that he removed?
Yes, it does.
All right. Other than perhaps some cutouts that have been done for forensic purposes, is that a fair and accurate depiction of the way it appeared at the time?
Yes, it is.
Okay. If you would just come over a little closer. I'm going to ask you if you recognize the packaging associated with States 151.
Yes, I do.
Does that bear the case markings and your markings from the collection in this case?
Yes, it does.
Put those back in there. States 153. You recognize that to be the shirt that the defendant gave you that evening?
Yes, I do.
And again, would you just examine the packaging? Does it bear your markings, the case number, etc.?
Yes, it does.
And States 152, those appear to be the blue jeans that the defendant gave to you.
Yes, they do.
All right. You would just confirm that through the packaging.
Yes, I do.
All right. You may resume your seat. Officer Smith, in your work in this case, did you process the defendant's firearm?
Yes, I did.
And where did you do that?
At the Sanford Police Department.
All right. And how did you come into possession of the defendant's gun?
I received it from Officer Timothy Smith,
And what kind of firearm was it?
a 9mm Kel-Tec.
Is that a semi-automatic firearm?
Yes, it is.
And had the gun already been secured, that is, unloaded when you received it?
Yes, it was.
Madam Clerk, may I have the exhibit? May I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
Deputy, could I ask you to examine State's 154 to determine whether or not it's been secured with a gun lock?
Yes, it is.
All right. Would you hand that to Officer Smith?
Thank you.
Officer Smith, do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes, I do.
And was that the gun and holster that you received from Officer Tim Smith in connection with this case?
Yes, it is.
And do you recognize the packaging, the case number, again, et cetera?
Yes, I do.
Could you hold up the firearm for the jury, please? All right, and the red piece that you're holding in your left hand, is that the end of the gun lock to secure the firearm?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Did that gun lock, was that given to you when you received it from Officer Smith, or is that something that's been added later for courtroom security?
It's been added later.
All right. If you would then, please hold up the holster containing that exhibit. Thank you.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. May we have the exhibit number, please?
I believe it's 154.
It is.
Thank you.
Officer Smith, did you wear gloves when you handled that firearm?
Yes, I did.
And why did you wear gloves?
To preserve any evidence?
Did you process the firearm in any way?
Yes, I did.
And how did you do that?
For which processing method?
Well, that's what I'm asking you.
Oh.
In what ways did you process it?
I processed it for touch DNA and for latent prints.
All right. And when you say touch DNA, what do you mean?
I mean, it's touch DNA, meaning it's not like physical DNA, like the presence of blood. It's something that you may not be able to see.
All right. And how do you process an item for touch DNA?
Use a sterile swab with distilled water. You put that on the tip of the sterile swab. You swab the area for a few minutes, package it, and secure it.
All right. And did you do that with the firearm in this case?
Yes, I did.
And can you show the jury what areas of the firearm you processed for DNA?
Yes, I can. I processed the grip, which is on the back side, the trigger, and the back part of the slide here.
All right. And then what did you do with those swabs?
I submitted them into evidence.
And how many swabs did you collect from the firearm?
3 swabs.
All right. Did you also process the holster for touch DNA?
Yes, I did.
And did you do that in the same manner?
Yes, I did.
And how many swabs did you take from the holster?
Just 1.
All right. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
Let me show you States 170. Ask you if you recognize that.
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
The 4 swabs that I collected from item TS-1.
And how do you recognize it to be the same?
the object markers, my handwriting, and case number.
All right. You indicated that you also processed the firearm for latent prints. Tell the members of the jury which processing did you do first, that is the swabbing for DNA or the examination for latent prints?
I visually examined it for latent prints prior to swabbing for DNA. After swabbing for DNA, then I processed the rest of the firearm for latent prints.
Okay, why did you process it for DNA prior to using some physical component to process it for fingerprints?
The areas that were swabbed for DNA are less likely to have latent prints appear after processing them.
All right, and explain to the members of the jury, first of all, what is a latent print? What is meant by that?
A latent print is an impression that contains rich detail.
And how is it that you're able to capture that or preserve that for future examination?
When you're using powders, it adheres to traces of fatty acids, amino acids, and proteins that are within latent prints.
And how do you, physically, how do you use the powder to capture a latent print?
You take a latent brush, you put it in the powder, and you lightly brush the item.
And then what do you do? What's the next step?
And any areas of interest, then you take latent print tape, put it on the item, take it off, put it on a latent print card.
And do you mark the card in any way?
Yes, you do.
And how's that?
You mark it by the case number, the item number, what you're lifting the tape from, and draw a diagram.
And when you processed the firearm, in this case for latent fingerprints, were you able to lift any, to make any lifts onto a card?
Yes, I was.
How many?
Just one.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Let me show you States 183. Ask if you recognize that.
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
The latent print card that I pulled from the firearm.
And how do you recognize it to be the same?
My case number, item number, and diagram.
Did you indicate on the latent card itself where the print was taken from the firearm?
Yes, I did.
And how did you do that?
I drew a diagram, circled the area.
All right. Your Honor, may she step down just briefly?
Yes, you may.
Officer Smith, if you join me over here. And again, keep your voice up, and so the court reporter can hear you, and show the members of the jury where on the firearm you took the latent print and how you depicted it on the card.
Here's a lift from the actual firearm. On the opposite side is my diagram and all the information, case number, item number, where it was lifted from.
Okay, and how is it depicted on the diagram where it was lifted from?
There is a circle drawn around it with an X in the middle of it.
All right. So hand that to me. You may resume your seat. Thank you. Officer Smith, so we're clear, is it your job once you lift or make a lift of a latent print, is it your job to analyze it to determine whether or not it's of any value or whether or not it can be compared to any individual?
No, it's not.
Whose job is that?
That would be a latent analyst.
In a similar manner, when you take a swab from DNA, are you the person who goes on to process that, or is that done by someone else?
That is done by somebody else.
All right. Did you also process in this case the Skittles bag that was shown earlier, as well as the larger black flashlight?
Yes, I did.
And did you swab them for DNA in the manner that you previously described?
Yes, I did.
And again, is that something then that you would turn over to an agency such as the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for analysis of any DNA that may be on there?
That is correct.
All right. Did you also process the larger flashlight, the black flashlight, for latent fingerprints?
Yes, I did.
How did you do that?
I fumed it and then used black powder.
And were you able to obtain any lifts when you processed the flashlight?
No, I did not.
All right. Did you process any other items in this case for latent lifts?
Yes, I did.
Specifically, did you process the 2 plastic bags that we saw earlier, the white one and the brown one, as well as the keys that were connected to the flashlight?
Yes, I did.
And how did you process those items for latent fingerprints?
They were fumed and processed with black powder or magnetic powder.
All right. And what is it that you mean when you say fumed?
Fuming is a method where we use superglue. We put the items in a chamber. We ignite the superglue. It creates a white gas, and the gas will adhere to traces of the fatty proteins that we discussed earlier. And it forms to the ridges, making the latent print a little bit more visible.
All right. And were you able to obtain any latent lifts from either of the plastic bags, the keys, or the flashlight?
No, I did not.
All right. Your Honor, may I approach? Yes. States 169. You recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Are those the DNA swabs that you took from the Skittles packaging and the larger black flashlight?
Yes, they are.
All right. Let me turn your attention then to Tuesday, February 28th. Did you collect any evidence from the medical examiner's office on that date in connection with this case?
Yes, I did.
And when you collected those items, did you do anything to them? Did you process them in any way?
No, I did not.
Did you repackage those items in any way?
There might be a couple of them that I did.
All right. Was your goal essentially to transport those items from the security of the medical examiner's office to the property room with the Sanford Police Department?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes, you may.
Let me show you States 164. You recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
This is the watch that the victim was wearing.
All right. And can you just hold that up for the members of the jury? As best you can. All right. In States 191, is that a item of evidence that you collected from the medical examiner's office?
Yes, it is.
And specifically, are those the tools, if you will, or sticks that were used to scrape fingernail scrapings from Trayvon Martin?
Yes, they are.
And is that something that you did yourself or something that the personnel at the medical examiner's office would have undertaken?
The personnel at the medical examiner's office.
All right. Let me show you States 186. And what is that?
This is the FTA card.
And is that otherwise commonly known as a blood spot stain card?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. And was that also collected from the victim by the personnel at the medical examiner's office?
Yes, it was.
In States 165, what is contained in that exhibit?
This is the projectile.
Recovered from Trayvon Martin's body by the medical personnel at the medical examiner's office?
Yes, that is correct.
And you had mentioned earlier that you had made a diagram of the scene and then turned that over to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for the computer renditions. Let me show you 168 and ask you if you recognize that.
Yes, I do.
Is that the diagram and legend to the diagram with measurements that you completed in this case?
Yes, it is.
And is that the same copy or exact copy of the original that you turned over to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
Yes, it is.
Let's read those from you. Officer Smith, thank you for your time. Your Honor, that's all I have.
Thank you. Would this be a good time to take a break?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 15-minute recess. If you'll please place your notepads face down on the chair and follow Corporal Debs back into the jury room. Okay, Officer Smith, we're going to take a 15-minute recess. That means you're allowed to walk around and get off the stand, but you're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anybody, and that includes the lawyers. Thank you. Court will be in recess for 15 minutes.
We have an extra there's a matter that Mr. Zimmerman needs to deal with.
Okay, we'll take 20 minutes.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, ma'am. If you please tell the members of the jury your name.
Diana Smith
And how are you employed?
with the Sanford Police Department.
And how long have you been with the Sanford Police Department?
A little over 6 years.
And your position with the police department is what?
I'm a crime scene technician.
And can you describe for the jury what are your duties and responsibilities as a crime scene technician?
I respond to crime scenes to document, photograph, collect, and preserve evidence.
And how long have you been a crime scene detective or technician with the Sanford Police Department?
Almost 6 years.
All right. And what was your position before becoming a crime scene technician?
I was an evidence technician.
All right. And tell them what an evidence technician does.
They transport, intake, and inventory evidence.
Can you give the jury a brief summary of your training and education that you've completed to prepare you for your duties as a crime scene technician?
On-the-job training. I also have certifications in crime scene processing, crime scene response, reconstruction of shooting incidences, DNA analysis, death investigation, and blood pattern analysis.
All right. Do you also attend continuing education? You did conduct a walkthrough in this case.
Yes, I did.
All right. After completing the walkthrough, what's the first thing you did as far as processing the scene?
Started my photographs.
And did you touch or move anything before you started your photography?
No, I did not.
And why do you start with photography?
So that I can present in my photographs the way the scene was presented to me.
Was it still raining when you were taking photographs?
Yes, it was.
And in fact, did some of your photographs capture the rain at the scene?
Yes, they do.
Do you photograph the scene in stages?
Yes, I do.
And explain to the jury what you mean by that.
My first photographs are overalls using no markers, and then I go back in and get closer with markers.
And tell them what you mean by markers.
Object markers, usually with a number or a letter.
And what are the purpose of placing markers by items of evidence?
In relevance to photographing the location to one another.
All right.
Yes, I did.
Did you conduct a walkthrough of the scene?
Yes, I did.
And explain for the members of the jury, what is a walkthrough? What do you mean by that?
The officers that are briefing me on the scene would usually walk me through and point out any type of evidence or anything that they've noticed that I need to be aware of before I start working the scene.
You know, practice that a moment. courses to stay current in the field of crime scene investigations?
Yes, I do.
Can you estimate for the jury, please, the approximate number of scenes that you've processed in your 5+ years as a crime scene technician?
It's been about a few hundred.
Incidentally, are you related to a Sanford Police Department patrol officer named Tim Smith?
Yes, I am.
How so?
He's my husband.
Do you and Officer Smith, Officer Tim Smith, occasionally have the opportunity to respond to the same calls?
Yes, we do.
And how does that happen?
My on-call rotation sometimes lands on his rotation.
All right. Let me turn your attention then, please, to the evening of Sunday, February 26, 2012. Were you working on that evening?
Yes, I was.
And on that evening, did you respond to the scene of a shooting at the Retreat at Twin Lakes complex?
Yes, I did.
Is that located here in Sanford, Seminole County, Florida?
Yes, it is.
And approximately what time did you arrive on the scene?
About 7:55 p.m.
Had the scene been taped off and secured by patrol officers when you arrived?
Yes, it was.
And what were the weather conditions like when you arrived?
We were experiencing intermediate showers.
Had it been raining prior to your arrival at the scene?
Yes, it had.
When you arrived at the scene, did you speak with Sanford Police Department patrol officers that had arrived before you?
Yes, I did.
And what is the purpose of that?
To brief me on the scene.
Was the victim's body still located at the scene when you arrived?
Yes, it was.
And did you later learn that person's name to be Trayvon Martin?
Yes, I did.
Did Trayvon Martin's body have a yellow medical blanket on top of it when you arrived?